Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is going on, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. Let's hope that this is not the last time we preview a game this season, but nonetheless, I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Let's welcome the guys in. Dave, what's going on?
Not too much, Jeff. It just seems like how I get with most times when we're coming off a Steelers loss, heading towards another Steelers game. As the new game gets closer, I start to feel a little bit more confident of what the Steelers could possibly do, regardless of how things are going on. So each and every day, I'm like a little bit more excited about it.
There you go. Hope springs eternal. Bryan Davis, what's up?
Hey, fellas, I'm going to quote some Bruce Springsteen here. You end up like a dog that's been beat too much, and you spend half your life just covering up. And I feel like a beaten man. But you know how a victory will take all that pain away from me and the boss.
It would be nice. It would be great. Now, let's start off this thing with how are we feeling? Like Dave just kind of said, every day he's feeling a little bit better about the game. He's, you start to think about things, analyze things, looking at things from different perspectives. Does this seem like a tall task? Because I'll tell you what, I was kind of it felt like just a regular game for me. That there's not the playoff excitement yet for me. It'll come, but just not yet. And then Wang Harbs had to open his fat mouth. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Wang Harbs, so this is from the Ravens official Twitter feed. You can check it out on my feed because I shared it and said, old Wang is up to his wanginess. But still, he comes out and says, Zay Flowers is out this week, but don't worry, we'll get him back for next week. Whoa, wait a second there, Wang. You realize you have to win this game before you talk about next week, right? Well, that got me fired up. Then all of a sudden the juices started flowing. Now all of a sudden the playoff environment is starting to come alive. I'm starting to feel, I heard Roger Woods? Here We Go song. I heard the latest rendition of that song the other day. I'm feeling it. Bryan, what about you?
Yeah, you know what? You can't help to. And man, I took a couple of weeks off of Hard Knocks, and then I went back and decided to watch them all. And I hate Harbaugh even more over the past couple of weeks. He is a complete weenus. This guy, just like everything this guy says, I can't stand him even more. I thought I'm getting older. Maybe I'll soften on him. No, they are completely looking past the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe it's a good idea too. Maybe what we've been seeing is just natural selection, and the Steelers are going to be weeded out. But don't tell them that. They don't believe that. And here's the big thing for me. It's the fact that now, if they were playing Buffalo this week or any other team, I'd probably feel a little different. But the reason I feel good is because I know what they can do against the Ravens. I know what they've done against the Ravens. And Steelers didn't have their number one receiver in week 15 or 16, whatever that week that was, 16. And now the Ravens don't have their number one receiver in the playoffs. So maybe that's the thing. But when I watched those highlights again today on Hard Knocks, I'm thinking, they were really in this game.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that for sure. We'll do
20 minutes to go. Yeah.
We'll go over the injury report, but Dave, what's your take on what's your overarching feeling about the playoffs coming up Saturday?
I understand that when you really look at it from a Steelers standpoint and how they've been playing, there's not a lot of hope there because they haven't been playing well. But then if you want to look for more hope, you can find it. Like the Steelers did play much better defensively this past week. I mean, my goodness, they held the Bengals to under 20 points. The thing that really has you down is the offense. And so many times the Steelers have been giving up massive points in the playoffs and their offense can't keep up. If they give up a bunch of points in this game, they're not going to win. The offense isn't going to keep up. Now, could the offense suddenly just say, you know what, screw this. We're going out and we're just going to take it to them. Yeah, that would be wonderful. But we haven't seen that. So there's no reason to expect something that that we haven't really seen all season. But so from that standpoint of what the Steelers are doing, but the familiarity of this opponent, the fact that they're going to be down their best wide receiver, the Steelers haven't had their entire secondary playing in a game since they played the Browns. This will be the first time that they have everyone available in the secondary. It just kind of makes you say, you know what, this could be a perfect storm, that if the Steelers play their best, they could win this game. The big question is, are we going to see the best that the Steelers have to offer?
Yeah. And anyone that's been paying attention to the media availability for the Steelers today, TJ Watt spoke to the media, and man, I feel for that dude. And he talked openly about how he's never won a playoff game. And he said how you forget this guy was drafted in 2017 and he's never won a playoff game. And he talked about the players that come back, the alumni that come back. He said, you need to get a ring. He said, because when those guys come back, it's different. He said, nothing against the guys that didn't win one, but when those guys that did win one come back, it's different. And you got to feel like him, Minka's never won one either. They've got to start feeling that pressure. Like, it's not just Mike Tomlin. I know Mike Tomlin said on Monday that, that's his luggage to carry, or some euphemism that he uses, but whatever. It's true with TJ Watt and those guys that have been here for a while and have never won a playoff game. I think it's down to two, is it not? Two players that have been with the Steelers the last time they won a playoff game. It's Cam and Boswell, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all.
So
Cam's never been to a Super Bowl either. He came right after the last Super Bowl.
Yep. He was the draft pick they got 31st.
Yeah.
After they appeared in that Super Bowl. Yep.
So, when you think about this game, and I just think to myself, and Friday's Let's Ride podcast is going to have a lot of good information on it for a lot of different reasons. I did not go behind enemy lines. I did not want to hear from the Ravens people. I was like, I can't do that. I just can't.
I saw that. That was awesome.
I can't do this. Like, this is all about the Steelers. But still, I think for me, it's can the Steelers not have a double-digit deficit in the first half like they have every single playoff game since they last won one? And you can go back. Actually, I have it here on my Twitter feed. You can go back and you can take a look at all these games where the Pittsburgh Steelers, oh my gosh, it is incredible how many times they've had to come back from these absolutely ridiculous margins in every one of these games. Yeah, Dave.
They haven't had a lead in a game since they played the Browns. Ever since they have had someone missing from the secondary, they have not had a lead in a game since they played. Was it the Browns was the Browns the last win, or was
Browns?
Went Browns, Bengals,
8.
Browns. Yeah, so it was the Browns. I'm making sure I'm not getting my games mixed up there. Yeah, the last time the Steelers, when the clock hit zeros and they had a win, that was the last time they even had a lead. That's the problem.
But I mean, you can go back, and I'm trying to find the tweet. I can't find it. Of course, I can't find it. To hell with it. But still, it's one of those things where you talk about, can they just weather the storm early? Keep it close. And I'll go and ask you guys this question. You're in Baltimore. You win the toss. You're Mike Tomlin. Are you taking the football and hoping that you might be able to get a lead? Or are you saying, hell no, put the defense on the field? What say you, Bryan?
Still going to put the defense on the field, because that Dave always talks about winning the middle 20. And I really think in the playoffs, that's a deficit right there, especially with a team that could put a field goal on the board so easily, like the Baltimore Ravens. I would think that you would probably want more possessions than possible, and you have the opportunity to bookend possessions.
Yeah. Dave, what about you? You kicking off, or are you taking the ball?
I'm kicking off. Well, technically I'm deferring because, believe it or not, I have coached in high school games where the other team won the toss and instead of deferring, unwisely said, we're kicking off, because guess what we said in the second half? We'll receive. And then we got the ball both halves.
Yeah.
I don't think the Ravens are going to screw that up that bad. Unless, Wang Harbs is like, we'll beat them anyway. So to me, Did the Steelers do anything on their opening drive of the first half offensively? No. Have they been giving up points, most often touchdowns on the first drive defensively? Yes. So you're like, you want to avoid that. But, either way, it's been bad. Then you look going into the second half, they haven't been scoring coming out of the half. So exactly what Bryan said, to know that you can't give up the dreaded give up points at the end of the first half, give up points to start the second half without even touching the football. That's why you defer, because you haven't done well in either spot to where it would be an advantage for you. All you have to do is something that could hopefully take away the best advantage for your opponent, since you haven't been the one that's been taking advantage of it.
I found the tweet. So
okay.
Jacksonville jumped out to a 21-0 lead in that playoff game. Cleveland jumped out to a 28-0 lead.
Yep.
Kansas City jumped out to a 35-7 lead. That 7 was that scoop and score by TJ Watt.
And that was first. Steelers were up 7-0. Then they gave up 35 straight. Well, the offense had 5 drives before Kansas City had even scored and didn't do anything, or 4 drives, something like that.
Buffalo jumped out to a 21-0 lead.
Yep.
This is what's been the norm for the Steelers in the postseason. And not all that is on the defense. Like Cleveland, they gave up 28-0. I mean, Marquise Pouncey snaps the ball over Ben's head. Ben throws a pick 6. Like, some of that stuff is not on the defense. But they have got to keep it close. But I guess for me, the one thing I keep going back to is that we've seen this team play borderline elite football this year. This is not a hope and pray team. They got in. Let's hope and pray that they can somehow, some way find a way to win. They're not playing well leading into the playoffs, but it's not like that team doesn't exist. That team exists. It's just, can they find it? Can they find it? Can they actually get the timely takeaway? And I don't know. I'm starting to feel a little bit better about this game as we go. But Bryan, what's your take? Anything?
Yeah, for me, it's again, you just have a team that has put themselves in bad positions in these playoff games. And it seems like in the last 4 games, they've put themselves in bad positions. I think it is equal parts coaching, equal parts execution. So I really think it's a collective fault, but you're absolutely correct, Jeff. I'm glad you said it, because it's in there. That there's something in there that's made us really think, wow, this team could be special, and it's all there. So Russell Wilson all of a sudden needs to get his head back in the game, which I think his head's in the game, but get his head attached with all the other players on that offense. The offensive line has to give him time. The receivers have to get open, and the receivers have to catch balls, and George Pickens has to have a short memory and just realize how he got here in the first place.
Dave, any takes?
Just, it's not that they can't. The question is, will they? What will you see? There are plenty of scenarios where the Steelers can win this game. I'm just not saying that there are more scenarios that they win in which they lose. That's Jeff won't understand this. Bryan will understand this. It's not like you see Dr. Strange there freaking out and saying he looked over 14 million, 801 different scenarios, and they won 1. There are scenarios and ways that the Steelers can win this game. It's just they might not have more of them than their opponent, but we'll see what happens when they play on Saturday. And there's nothing wrong with believing, they just can't pull off those scenarios. I don't see they're going to happen. They're going to lose. I get that. And there's also nothing wrong with saying, hey, they could very well fall into one of these scenarios. They weren't that far off from it before. They can win. And they did it once earlier this year. They could win. So that's playoff football. It really can be any one team versus the other.
Say the super chat here. Eamon J saying $4.99. Good question. I'm not sure if I don't know the answer. If the Steelers lose, it'll be 5 in a row. When was the last time this happened, including the postseason?
I'm thinking 2009 comes to my head, a 5-game losing streak, and that was the Unleash Hell days.
Yeah, They didn't make the playoffs that year, though.
No.
I
Do you
mean,
know,
the
Dave?
team hasn't lost 4 games going into the playoffs since the Lions in 1999.
Did they lose
But-
that playoff game?
I didn't look to see how they did. I could here real quick.
I don't know.
Yeah.
1999. The Lions, they were the last team that's lost 4 games in a row.
That's I read that somewhere else.
I vaguely remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll see what I can find.
Okay. All right. I saw someone in the live chat. They said, that the Steelers' offensive line is struggling. The play calling is struggling, and no one's doubting that that's not factual. But don't think those two things don't go hand in hand either. If the play caller doesn't trust the pass protection to hold up for a deep shot downfield, then he's probably not going to call a lot of those. But still, and then double back, just ask, can anybody confirm if Zay Flowers is out? The answer is yes.
Out.
He is out this week. Let's talk about the injury report while we're talking about.
Do you want me to answer this question about the Lions?
Go. Yeah, do it.
Yeah, they lost the Buccaneers, then to the Bears, then to the Broncos, then to the Vikings. They went to the wild card, had to go to Washington, and lost 27-13.
Yikes!
So
Yikes!
So that's happened. Not Pittsburgh, but it has happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do some injury report stuff. Dave, you got the Steelers ready?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. There's more than just the injury report to talk about here, though, because then there was a roster move after the injury report.
Right.
But when it comes to players on the injury report, the only player on the 53-man roster that has an injury designation for the Steelers is Mason McCormick, is questionable with his hand injury. Chris Boswell, once again, did not practice because of an illness today, but he has no injury status, which tells me, hey, he's under the weather. We're not going to make him ride out to Acrisure. There's not enough room to do a ton of kicking out there anyway. It's not like he can kick on a side field while we're doing other things. It's Boz. That might have been the mentality behind it. I don't know. But Cam Hayward was back with his injury, no injury status. So it's just Mason McCormick who is questionable. Now,
Cam was just sick. No injury.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want people to think that he was hurt. He was sick.
Yeah, he was sick. But I was just talking with him with Boswell because I was talking about people that were out due to illness.
Right.
Okay. Dante Jackson practiced full all week. He's got no injury status. Michael Pruitt, who was limited and then didn't practice, he was back full on Friday and has no injury or status. I expected him to maybe be out and the Steelers just go with one less tight end to open up some other things, but that ended up not happening. But the players who aren't on the 53, who are on the designated to return, 3 of them were ruled out in Roman Wilson, Cole Holcomb, and Logan Lee, where offensive lineman Calvin Anderson was questionable. Now, the reason behind, can I get into all this now, Jeff?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. The reason Anderson is questionable is because they may possibly bring him back to the roster, because if Mason McCormick is out and doesn't dress, you have to dress 8 offensive linemen in order to have 48 helmets. If you don't, you only get 46 helmets. So if you have one less lineman, you have to take one less somewhere else. That was whenever they expanded from 46 to 48 a couple of years ago. That's been the rule ever since. They never changed it. The Steelers only have 8 offensive linemen on the roster right now since Anderson went on the on IR 4 or 5 weeks ago that he's now coming back from. Then the Steelers made a roster move of where they released wide receiver Scotty Miller. All right, all the wide receivers are healthy. Scotty Miller was going to be inactive. They released Scotty Miller because chances are what happens is Anderson is going to be brought back to the 53 just in case with everything with McCormick. So that's going on. That's the move that you would expect there. Some people are like, oh, could it be Roman Wilson? They've already ruled him out. It hasn't been about Roman Wilson. I know so many people are like, why don't you just get Roman Wilson out there? If he doesn't know what he's doing, it's going to be worse for both him and the Steelers than it would be otherwise. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing. I'm just saying if that's what the Steelers do. I feel like they've really protected him this year. I don't know that they should have, but they did, which kind of makes you think that why would they do this now? So to me, this is all about that 8th offensive lineman and everything going on with the whole Scotty Miller thing. And if Mason McCormick's going to be out there, I've said enough. I can let you guys go now.
Well, someone asked, is Roman Wilson getting a helmet? No, he's out. He's been ruled out. It's not going to happen. He's not going to get activated this week. Bryan, thoughts on the Steelers injury report?
They're relatively healthy. I even consider Mason McCormick healthy if put a club on his hand. I mean, that's we've seen linemen go out there with a broken hand before. I mean, I don't know if that's exactly what they want to do in this situation, but I like the fact that the defensive backs are all there, like Dave and Jeff talked about earlier on in the show. I just kind of feel like if you really can't pin anything on the injury report this week. I felt like last week you really couldn't either, and then all of a sudden Dante Jackson's on it. So that's the thing. I hope nobody shows up all of a sudden. And I know this is the last injury report because this is the last one because it's a Saturday game, correct?
Yeah, yep. That was why they had statuses.
So yeah, I would almost feel that they're going into this as healthy as they can be right now, with the exception of a broken hand, and you still might see that guy.
Yeah, I know Mason McCormick said that he's not going to cast it up. He said that he's going to try a brace. He said he has to be able to test it out to see if he's going to be able to successful. I give him a lot of credit as a rookie. You got to think like, it's a playoffs. I'm playing like no matter what. And he said, if I'm going to hurt the team, I'm not going out there. I'm not going to play if I can't do my job. It's only going to hurt the team. And so if he doesn't play, Spencer Anderson will take over at right guard, which could then equate to some roster shuffling. Dave, what do you want to say?
There is a decent shot that the most likely scenario is, or a fairly decent scenario of McCormick dresses but does not play unless he has to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's possible.
So he's a reserve for Spencer Anderson, who then would get the start.
Yeah. Other than that, I think the fact that Dante Jackson practiced fully all week with his back issues is a great sign. You hope that Chris Boswell's okay for the game in terms of being able to do his job. But other than that, I mean, the Steelers, in terms of their injury report, look pretty good. They look pretty darn good. Dave, any final thoughts there before we go over to Baltimore?
No, we're good.
All right, let's go.
So
Ravens.
go to Baltimore is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they only have 2 players with an injury status, one of which is not on the 53-man roster, who is wide receiver return specialist Deontay Hardy is questionable with a knee if they will bring him back or not for this game. But the big one is wide receiver Zay Flowers with his knee has been ruled out.
Yeah. And John Harbaugh is labeled as a weenus from Ryan Davis.
Yeah, that's his status.
That's my analysis. Hasn't quite caught on yet, but
so listen, the Zay Flowers thing. I want to say this now, third of you, Bryan. I think the Zay Flowers, him being out, is gigantic in this game because now you're looking at Nelson Aguilar, Rashad Bateman, and you have the Steelers' full allotment of defensive backs at the ready. So Corey Trice is experienced now. At least he has some game experience under his belt, and he's available. Joey Porter Jr., who left the last time in the game, in-game injury against the Ravens last time, he's healthy and available. You have Deshaun Elliott there. He's available. Now, all of a sudden, without Zay Flowers, because if you have Zay Flowers, Aguilar, and Bateman, along with Likely and along with Andrews at tight end, that's tough. And you still have to try to stop the run. But when you take Flowers out of the equation, it doesn't get easy, but it gets easier. And I think that's definitely 2 different things. I hope everyone can see that. I think the Steelers with a healthy secondary, I like the way they match up. I'm curious how they're going to cover the tight ends. But in terms of receivers, I like that matchup. Bryan, what's your take?
Yeah, you know what? That's very true because that's one less guy to worry about. And I just read on the live chat, and I agree with you. Frosty DeBear said, I'm worried with Flowers out. They go to tight ends all day long. But remember, this is John Harbaugh, and this is Lamar Jackson, and they are very stubborn. I complain about the Steelers being stubborn all the time too, but they're like, we'll show you, we'll we'll not do what you think we're going to do, and we'll beat you with Bateman if you don't think Bateman's good enough. Bateman will kill you. Well, you know what? We'll try it. And Bateman has had some success. But one of the reasons Bateman's had some success because Zay Flowers has been running around. And you've got to, I mean, when you have one less guy to worry about, it helps. It's not a death knell for the Ravens, but it's something that really gives the Steelers something to hope for even more.
Dave, thoughts on that?
Okay, well, first of all, just so you know, Bateman, his numbers in the 2 games against the Steelers this year, he has been targeted. Oh, I got to miss the targets. He's been targeted 8 times. Okay,
A combined 8 times.
A combined 8 times, 3 catches, 44 yards, 1 touchdown. Like the last time they played, he had 1 catch for 14 yards, but it was a touchdown.
Right.
Okay. The first
Did he
game
get one last year that I'm thinking
2 catches for 30. I'm only looking at this year. I don't have last year's game by game up in front of me because that's Pro Football Reference just has the most recent. I'd have to go in and search other things out. So that's one thing. But to me, it's the Juju Smith-Schuster effect. It was kind of what Bryan was talking about. And that was Juju Smith-Schuster was a really polarizing weapon when Antonio Brown was on the field. It was a whole different story when he was the guy all himself. I'm not saying that it was terrible or not. I mean, you all can judge that for yourself, but you have to admit Juju's crazy numbers was because defenses were worried about Antonio Brown.
Right.
So I completely get that part of it. Now, here's the other thing, the other thing to look at. How did the tight ends, how were they utilized against the Steelers last time? Okay. They actually were, I mean, both times it's been pretty impressive. The first matchup, it was 6 receptions for 97 yards, but no touchdowns. Last game, it was 2 touchdowns. And hold on, I had to click off of it in order to bring up the one before. They had 2 touchdowns, but it was 7 receptions for 66 yards. So to me, I could see more of the same when it comes to the tight ends. But to me, the biggest one that I would say is assuming, I know he was out with the concussion for a while. I assume that he's back. Is one that's sometimes been interesting with the Steelers. I'm not as much worried about Rashad Bateman. What is it with Nelson Aguilar? I assume he's someone who could very well be the next person that then the Steelers have to deal with. Or is he just been gone or out? Because according to his stats, he hasn't registered anything since the Giants game. Did they end up having to put him on IR?
No, I thought he just might not be getting a lot of playing time. They've been targeting Mark Andrews a lot more in recent weeks. So there's just not enough footballs to go around sometimes. And so,
I mean, that was my only question, because he doesn't have, he doesn't have any stats since the Giants game.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was inactive, maybe. Like he's healthy, but they're just a healthy scratch. Who knows?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Let's get this question here, super chat, and then we'll take a break and come back and do our fun stuff in the second half. Todd Williams gives us $4.99, says, do we need to throw the ball in the middle of the field? I would say that it would be wise to attack all parts of the football field. And when you don't attack all parts of the football field, you become easier to defend. So think about what the Steelers did against Cincinnati. It's very much like the Matt Canada offense. We're all going outside the numbers. We're doing short rhythmic passes and nothing really over the middle. Dave even said in the postgame show, Pat Freiermuth was probably so stunned that he got the ball thrown to him over the middle. That's why he dropped the ball on 4th and 12.
Cheek, but what's sad is there was a little bit of truth to it.
But there's a little bit of truth to it. And the fact that Russ is not the tallest quarterback also could play a role. Yeah. When these linemen are getting pushed and they're standing up and they're 6'4", 6'5", and he's 5'10", it's tough to see the middle of the field sometimes. Let's just call a spade a spade. But Dave, what's your take on that?
All right. I chimed in, but I'm like, on what? Using the middle of the field?
Yeah, just
That was okay. Just making sure
question,
I didn't want to Seattle has 2 losses in. I wanted to make sure I had the right question. Yeah, I was screaming for it last game. I'm like, can not only the middle of the field, how about the middle distance in the passing game? Like the 10 to 20 yard range. That's missing as well. Even if it's to the sidelines, I don't even care. But it just seems like that there's zones in there that think about it. If the Steelers aren't using 10 to 20, they're only throwing under 10 or over 20, and then they're not using the middle, they're using the sidelines. You've only got the 4 corners. I mean, imagine makes me think of the number 5 on a die, and they're not hitting the middle one. So it's like it's just those 4 corners out there is all they're using in the passing game, which they've got to be able to. They've got to open up all kinds of stuff if they want to have more success. But the question is, are they not opening it up simply because they know they're not very good at it? But I would say maybe that's it. But guess what? The Steelers should know they're not very good at running the toss sweep. Not all the tosses, but the ones to the outside, yet they still keep running that. Why are they then afraid to throw something because they think it's not good enough? It's kind of mind-boggling exactly what the explanation is behind it.
What about you, Brian? What do you think about that?
You know, and I can't remember what game it was, but they were doing a really good job, and it was a victory. But it was in the later part of the season when they were throwing over the middle, even dinky stuff, but over the middle to Cordero Patterson and Najee Harris. And help me with that game if you can. I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Was it the first Cincinnati game when they were doing a lot of the dump offs?
Yeah, I think it was. And it was working and it was helpful. And I just letting them know you're there. It's kind of like this. You know, if you have a part of your yard that nobody goes to, the dogs don't go to, the kids don't go to, and so you just throw all your axes and shotguns out there thinking, hey, no one's going to go there, no one's going to touch it, it's not dangerous, then you know what you're going to do. Then the minute somebody roams in there and somebody gets shot or their head lopped off with an axe, what happens? Then you've got a problem. So use the entire field. I think I confused all of you. It worked in my head before I said it.
Fair enough. No problem. All right. Let's go to Thanks Me and Joe gives us $5. Says, can we get Dan Moore some help? Yeah. Hey,
they should have last week, and did they really, Dan? I mean, Bryan was there. Maybe he could see. Did they help a lot with Dan Moore, or is that why he was just so?
I can't tell you for sure on it. I will tell you this. I think Dan Moore handed the Defensive Player of the Year award to Trey Hendrickson in that game.
No, he handed him the sack title. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a break. When we come back after the break, for those watching live on any platform, we're not going anywhere. When we come back after this break on the audio side, we're going to do over-under, give our game predictions, a trip down memory lane, and of course, Steelers trivia. We'll be right back after this break. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. Second half. Thank you for sticking around. It's time for over under. We need to update things after week 18. Dave, what do we got?
All right. Well, here we go. Well, neither one of us, all three of us, none of us got either the game winner or the score over under correct. We were all 3 over in that. So I still lead that one 15 to Jeff's 14 to Brian's 13. But Bryan, who had been way ahead of us throughout things, he opened up a little bit more. Last week, he had 4, Jeff had 3, I had 2. So that means out of 101, the reason it's 101 is because we had a push in there the one time that we threw out. So 101 for the season. Bryan is the only one who went over 500 with 58. While nice. Jeff and I, for the regular season, were 47. So Bryan is up on us. We would have to do 6 this week. Jeff and I go 6-0 with Bryan going 0-6, and the Steelers would have to win and go to the next week, and we would have to do the same thing again in order to pass Bryan.
Well, there you go. And he left.
He's pulling the trophy.
I would like to thank everybody for this great honor. I'm already hoisting the hardware. Yay!
There you go. Bryan kept his Pee Wee trophy. That's pretty cool.
I never won that in Pee Wee.
All right, let's do this for the wild card round of the playoffs. Still sticking with 6. We'll see how it goes. Is everyone ready? All right.
Almost. I got to get to the right page. I was trying to get caught
Dave
up
acts like this is week 1 of the regular season.
No, I was reading the numbers, and then I'm sorry, when they're talking about the Beehive Bowl in the live chat, I got a little bit distracted.
We should definitely do that. The Beehive Bowl. We'll get some We'll get some dancers to be the refs, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Dave can be the kicker. The kicker around the
Beehive Bowl.
Who?
Wonder who plays. Is that lingerie football?
No. Steel Curtain Network would have a team in the Beehive Bowl.
I'm your fullback. That's all I'm saying.
I'm a center. I can snap it. It's a long trip to get around me, so I can help it that way.
We'll figure it out. Let's get this started. All right. First over under. Pittsburgh Steelers takeaways. We've got the line at 1.5. Bryan, over under.
I got to go over. I like the 2 on this. They seem to get takeaways. They always force a Lamar mistake here and there. Whether it's going to kill the Ravens or not, I don't know, but I'm going to give them 2.
All right, Dave.
All right, I'm trying to look back at the number. That's the one thing that really surprised me so much when I looked at these numbers, is how little the Ravens have turned the ball over this year. And yet they have, 3 or 4 against the Steelers. How many did they have the first game? 3 against the Steelers?
Maybe. They only had 1, the interception the last time. They had 3 fumbles, and none of them were recovered.
You know how many they have on the season?
Total? I didn't look it up now.
11.
Oh, nice.
How many do they have against the Browns the first time around?
I don't know. So it's one of those things where they have, hold on. I'm sitting right here on good old Nelson Aguilar on this page. Let me actually look at their game by game turnovers. Okay. They had 3 against the Steelers the first time. That's the only game all season that they've had more than 1. So they had 1 against the Steelers. They had 1 against the Giants. And then all the other games they had a turnover. It was only 1. So only 1 time all season has the Steelers done that. For that reason, as much as I feel that the Steelers need it to win the game, I don't care if I'm wrong, because if I'm wrong, I think it will help. Just numbers wise, I'm going to go under. I don't with them. If they get 1, that's good. So
I'm going over because I think they need every one of them.
I think they need them. I
get it. All right, next one. Pittsburgh Steelers sacks on Lamar Jackson. Last time they played him, only got to him 1 time. Alex Highsmith, that strip sack. I've got the line at 2.5 here. 2.5. Bryan, over under.
I unfortunately have to go with the under on this one. There's a possibility of 2, but it doesn't matter. I think you need more than that, but I have to go. My head sing under.
Okay, Dave.
Hey, I'm either going to make up ground or just lose even worse than I'm already getting smoked. I'll take the over, although the Ravens are a team that they didn't give up very many sacks this year. They gave up where I'm trying to see, where is it? They only gave up 24 all season. That's tied for the 3rd fewest. So that's it. But to me, and this is something that I mentioned on Pittsburgh Standard Time with Greg Benevent this morning, that's what would be some narratives after, what would we be talking about next week if the Steelers managed to win the game? And one of the things is I would say, you might hear something after the game about, oh man, they harassed Lamar Jackson all night, things like that. So I'm going to go wishful thinking. I'm going to go over.
Okay. I'm going over as well. And this is more Jeff saying what needs to happen if the Steelers are going to win.
Yes.
This is not me predicting necessarily. All right, let's go to the next one. Baltimore team rushing yards. And again, this line might be indicative of what I think needs to happen. I've got the line at 150.5.
I'm going to go ahead and go. Wow. I'm actually going to go under on this one. I'm thinking it's like 145. Indicative of what happens, Jeff. I like how you say that. Let's say that's got to happen. I actually think that they keep Mr. White and Mr. Henry under 100 yards. I think they keep him about 80 in this game, and if they do that, I think they win.
Dave?
Well, as I said, the last time they played, that was the only time Derrick Henry's gone over 75 yards against the Steelers in his career. But doesn't mean that they can do it again, because the first matchup, the Steelers win the game. They hold the Ravens to 124 rushing yards. This last one, they lose it. They give up, what was it, 220?
220, yes.
Yeah. So to me, I think they could give up over 150 and still win. I'm going to say if they barely do it, I'm going to take the over, just because I think the Ravens will say, oh, with no Zay Flowers, we're going to run, and we're not going to have a repeat of why we lost in Pittsburgh, where people were critical that we didn't run it enough. So I'm not saying they're going to be overly effective, but I think they will run it a lot.
I'm going under, because they have to keep them under if they want to win the game. All right, next, Russell Wilson passing yards. Got this line at 205.5. Bryan?
I keep on getting burnt by this, but I'm going to keep on touching the flame over.
Okay. Dave?
You said 205.5?
Correct, yes.
Okay, I was just making sure I had that down. Bryan took the over. Once again, it's just one of those things. They did not they threw it for almost that much in the loss, and they threw it for even less in the win. My goodness. You know what? I'm going to go under, but that doesn't mean I think the more they have to throw the ball, the more the game's out of hand. So to me, I would have preferred it to be under, because they don't have to.
This team is not a team that's going to bludgeon you to death with the ground game, so it has to be over. If they want to win, they have to be able to move the ball through the air, and they have to go back to the chunk plays that when Russell Wilson started, he was money with those chunk plays, 10, 15, 20-yard passes. Got to get back to it. That should equate to over 205. I'm taking the over. Next, we did this last week, Justin Fields snaps. So these are just times that Justin Fields is on the field counting as a snap. Doesn't have to touch the ball. I'm saying 2.5 is the number, same as last week. Bryan, you taking the over or the under?
I got burned on this last week too, but I'm gonna do it again. I'm taking the over. I think this week, you can't leave anything in the bag this week.
Yeah,
isn't that the Dave Fouts quote from the Water Boy or something?
No. Last game of the year, can't hold anything back.
Yep, there you go.
Well, we hope it's not the last game of the year. But
Yeah.
Dave, what about you? What do you think?
If it's not over, then shame on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Look, Fields wasn't available last time. You couldn't do it against the Ravens. If Justin Fields, with a couple of his plays, even though people were frustrated that he slid too early,
Yes.
but still, even the very next play, the threat of him keeping that ball around the end is what allowed them to get the first down and seal that game off. If they don't utilize him at least a little bit, shame on them.
I'm going to go over. I don't even care if Justin Fields just comes in short yardage and does quarterback sneaks. That's fine. It still counts as a snap. And I'm going to take.
He should have been on the field when they went on fourth down on Saturday night. He should have been. Sorry.
Let's not
even if they handed it off to Jalen Warren, it would have given him a better chance.
Let's not open up that wound again, Dave. Yeah. And let's go to the last one here. George Pickens receiving yards after a unbelievably titillating 0 yards on one catch last week with 3 drops. I've got his number at 50.5. I don't think that he's going to have another stinker. 50.5 George Pickens receiving yards. Bryan, what say you?
You know, my gut is telling me to go under, but my heart's saying over. You got to think that George Pickens, who I think is playing for his, whether he wants to or not, is playing for his football life in Pittsburgh. part of me doesn't know if he cares or not, but if he cares about football, then he's going to ball out this week.
All right, Dave.
Okay, you said your gut said one, your heart said the other. You did, which I assume that meant you were going.
I'm saying over
with your heart, with the over. I was just making sure that we had it all down right. You know what? See, now I'm like, should I have taken the under with the 205? But you're talking 50.5. He could get that in 2 receptions if they do it. So, or he could not. I think they either have to go to him a lot or they have to just completely spread the ball around everywhere else. You know what? Let's have some fun and go with the over as well.
Again, if the Steelers want to win, he has to be over. They have to have a good game from him. So I'm going over here as well.
So Jeff took the over on everything Steelers and the under everything Ravens.
Hell
That's
yes,
right.
I did.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about.
Vintage Jeff.
Is anyone surprised?
No.
I was going to say, I mean, Bryan didn't even wake up till I said titillating. I did see, I'm trying to see who asked the question about the officials. Brian Brown did. I looked it up here because this was put in our breaking news Slack channel. Alex Kemp, for those scoring at home, his crew, Alex Kemp will have Steelers Ravens. He's had Steelers one other time I read. And I think he only flagged him like 3 times.
That was my question. How has he done a Steelers game before? Which game was it?
I can't remember. I think it might have been the Chargers. And then he had the Ravens another time. And I think that was like flagged him 9 times for a lot of yards. I'm like, oh, good. This is perfect.
Bring it.
Here's the big downer, though. Here's the big downer. I believe I saw the stat that the home team has won 88% of the games that Mr. Kemp and company have officiated.
Okay. Check out the jig is up tomorrow at some point on steelcurtainnetwork.com. I always evaluate the crews every week in a very unique way. We'll put it that way. All right, let's take a look at the scores and what we think. First, the spread. The spread started out at 10 and is now decreased to 9.5.
Well,
so
it started early.
Yeah.
As soon as they knew it was the Ravens, is 8.5. Then it went to 9.5, and then to 10.
Now it's back to 9.5.
Now it's back to 9.5.
Back to 9.5. So Steelers are getting 9.5 on the road with an over/under of 43.5. Weather conditions in the crappy city of Baltimore is cold with a chance of snow, not a crazy accumulation. I think I've seen 1 to 3 inches throughout the day. So I'm sure the field will be covered. It shouldn't impact the game at night. But
3 inches in Baltimore is a disaster for that place.
Those Baltimoreans don't know what to do. All right.
Exactly.
So, Bryan, what is your prediction? What's the score?
I'm going to go ahead with 31-24, and I'm going to put it in favor of the Baltimore Ravens.
31-24. That would be a gut punch.
So you picked the Steelers to cover but not win.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
All right.
And that is obviously taken to over. All right. I'm going to take the over as well. I'll tell you, if this is the under, it's likely very good for the Steelers, unless it's an under because the Steelers don't hit double-digit points. You know what I mean? Because it's a blowout. But if it's an under close game, that lines up better for the Steelers. Unfortunately, I like I said, I talked about on Pittsburgh Standard Time. Go back, listen to, if you didn't, listening to the amount of points that the Steelers have given up in their playoff games, going all the way back to Super Bowl 45, is crazy. Because when they give up a bunch of points, they lose. When they don't, they win. And it's not even very many games that's in the 20s. They're either giving up points in the 30s and 40s, or they're keeping teams to under 20. So when you're in that middle region is when you could really get some good football. But I'm the more this week has gone on, the more I feel like the Steelers have a very good chance to win this game. But I still wouldn't put that chance above 50%. Therefore, I'm going Ravens 27-20.
Okay. Another 7-point win. Everyone on this the screen right now is picking the Ravens, except for me. Of course, I'm not going to
Shocking.
pick the freaking Ravens. Get the hell out of here. I'm not picking against the Steelers. The Steelers are going to find a way here. I like the way they match up. And sometimes you don't have to have a lot of reasons. Sometimes you just have to say, I'm going to put all my hope and faith in this team to turn it around. They're going to find a way. It's going to be a weird game. Steelers 29, Baltimore 27. And the Steelers punched their ticket to the divisional round of the postseason. And I would love nothing more than to be able to walk around this godforsaken state. And I'm not from here, by the way. I'm a transplant. Wearing my black and gold and be able to look at every single person that's wearing it. I just love it. I would love it. Do I think it'll happen?
Yeah.
Hell yes, I think it'll happen. Steelers win. Let's do
I
this.
wouldn't expect anything less from you, Jeff. I'd have been disappointed if you didn't. So no. I mean, that's the Steelers very well could. You and I agree with how many points they're going to give up with 27. Yeah. The only question is, will they score enough to beat 27? And they haven't for a while, but they got to find a way to do it. Give me a defensive score, special team score, something like that.
Brian Brown said, don't forget that hood. I might have to bring out the Shiesty hood. I should have done that. But I don't know if that was good luck though. When I wore that, like, that wasn't good luck. Like, it wasn't like they went on some streak or anything.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I might have to wear the pants this week, boys.
The Finnies?
Yeah.
You don't have the
Finny replacements.
You
the replacements. Yeah.
We don't know whose pants those were.
Whoever wore the number 69 in the 2004 preseason, we'll have to look that up, but that's who they belong to.
Could have been a couple guys, I guess, technically, 2004, because they could have had a defender too, right?
Yeah. I'll have to look it up.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You ready for some bad memories?
I am, and my bad memories are good memories this week. But we talked about at the beginning of this show how the Steelers in playoffs have gotten off to bad starts. Let's go back to another really bad start when they were down 21-7 at halftime. Corey Redding nailed Ben Roethlisberger. They picked up the fumble, went into the end zone. It was rough. I had one of my buddies call me up at halftime and say to me, he's like, well, sorry, Ravens are going to beat the Steelers. We finally got you. And I said, all right, you just sealed your fate. Thank you very much. Click. Next thing you know, Antonio Brown is catching a ball off his helmet of 58 yards. Ryan Clark's having an amazing game. It's tied at 24. And then Rashard Mendenhall goes in at the end to win this game. The Steelers go on to the AFC Championship game and beat the Jets. It's 2010. I'm saying this. They might get down in this game, but they're going to get right if everything happens. I know I picked against them, but I'm still feeling good. That's just a defense mechanism, boys.
All right. I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Those are the bad memories. Dave, you ready for trivia?
Yes, I am ready for trivia. All right, guys. You might have seen this floated around out there. And I'm only going back to the merger because technically not much. This is tough to do beforehand, although the Steelers only ever played one playoff game before the merger because that's how they were.
1948?
I think it was 47. Hold on. I could tell you just a second. Yeah, 47. You were close. And of course it was a loss to the Eagles. But anyway, back to this. Steelers are playing the Ravens for the third time this season. What is their record in the playoffs when playing a team 3 times in the season since the merger? Well, first of all, how many times do you think they've done it?
Let's say 4.
Well, let's see. They have played I know they've played the Browns and the Ravens a couple times in the playoffs. They've played the Browns, I think, 3 or 4 times in the playoffs. I'm going to say 3. They've played the Ravens in the playoffs, I think 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll go ahead and say 7. The Bengals, I think they've only played them once in the playoffs. So I'll say 8 times. And I would probably, I'm just going to say 8 times. That's 24 games. I would probably say
No. I'm not asking for record yet. How many times?
Oh, I would say 28 times they've played.
Okay. Well, first of all, they've played the Bengals twice. Remember, there was the Carson Palmer and the Vontaze Perfect.
Yep.
So that would be 9. But what you're forgetting is the 3 times they've played the Oilers in the playoffs back when they were in the same division with them. So it's 12. What do you think their record is? Not in the regular season, but their playoff record is in those games where they're playing a team for the third time.
Let's see here. They lost to the Ravens in the wild card round at Heinz Field.
I was at that one.
They lost to the Browns in 2020.
In front of nobody.
Correct. They did. They've never lost to the Bengals. I think that was their only playoff loss to the Ravens, I believe. Or did I miss one, Brian?
They lost to the Ravens in 15. I
Yeah.
call it the Ben Tate game.
Yep.
And of course the Browns game that they lost in 2020.
What about the Oilers? Did they ever lose?
They
to those
have
guys?
never lost to the Oilers, to my knowledge, in the playoffs.
You guys are right there. Just got to say it now.
Well, I'm going to say 10-2 with Jeff.
2.
You guys figured it out together, and they also had the live chat as well. A lot of people 10-2. They are 10-2 in the playoffs against teams that they're facing for the third time. Unfortunately, they've lost 2 out of the last 3, but they won a whole bunch there. I will tell you, when they played the Eagles in 1947, technically that was the third time they played them because, well, my goodness, there was only 10 teams in the league then. So they played a lot of them twice. And so I didn't count that one because it was before the merger. There wasn't enough teams to count. What about the Baltimore Ravens? How many times have they played a team in the postseason that they're playing for the third time?
Well, what did we say?
How many times have they played the Steelers? I don't think they've ever played the Bengals or the Browns in the playoffs.
They lost to the Bengals just a couple years ago when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
So
they've never played Cleveland, I don't think, have they?
No. I don't think they have. So I would say 3-2. Oh wait, how many times did they play the Steelers? 4?
I'm not asking for a record. I'm just asking how many times first.
Okay, so we're saying 4, and then the Bengals, I think once, maybe twice. I'll say 5.
Sounds right.
You're very close. It's 6 because in 2000 they played Tennessee when it was still the AFC South.
Yeah,
on their way to that Super
the Central.
Bowl. Central. I said South. Yeah, I meant Central. Sorry. Thank you. What do you think their record is in playoff games against teams they're facing the third time?
Well, they beat the Steelers once. They beat Tennessee, so they've only won twice.
2-4.
Yeah.
2-4. So for them, the magic hasn't been there quite as much going against the team the third time. So just try to give a little bit of hopeful trivia tonight.
Yeah, that weenus over there.
Yeah.
All right, let's do some playoff final thoughts. Brian, I'll let you go first.
Here's the deal. They have not played the Baltimore Ravens ever in Baltimore in the playoffs. The last time they played in Baltimore in the playoffs was 1974, and a plane crashed. Luckily, the Steelers blew them out in that game that everybody left, and that plane crash at the very end of the game saved a lot of lives. So congratulations to the Steelers. They're heroes for whipping up on the Colts. But this is going to be a very electric charged crowd. I'm sure there's going to be 20,000 Jack Callises running around looking to punch people out. I had a chance to go to the game. I very good tickets, very good price. Said no. I don't want any part of it. I'm feeling good about this game. Did I pick against them? Hell yeah, because the last time I picked against the Steelers, they won. Every time I pick the Steelers since, they've lost. I think I'm 0-4 in that streak. So I'm superstitious in everything. I'm going to be taking a shower at halftime again. like I normally do. I'm going to go ahead and do all the things that I do. But if this team has the heart that I think they have, and if the last 7 days is putting together a come to Jesus, which I'm sure there were come to Jesuses in that locker room. I'm sure there were some words that were said that hurt some feelings, and that's fine. But if you take it to heart and you go out there, Baltimore's a team that can be beaten. They lost 5 times this year. Steelers had them on the ropes until that fumble early on in that game. They were about to take the lead in that game. So I kind of feel if you can find a way to get a lead in this game, you could playoff Lamar comes out. But I don't care about playoff Lamar. I care about playoff Steelers. I want playoff Russ. I want playoff Pickens. I want playoff Watt. And I want playoff offensive line. I want everybody to realize that you're playing for your lives this year. And you go out there and have the pride that you have. Just let it all hang out, boys.
There you go. Dave, go ahead. Final thoughts.
All right. There, you can convince yourself, overwhelmingly convince yourself the outcome of this game going into it based on how you want to look at things, because there's just so much information to take in. That's why I threw another one out there about playing a team the third time in the season. But you could also look at, what the Steelers have done recently in the playoffs. You could look at, what things with the Ravens, things like that. Bottom line is, all of that is going to be out the window when these two teams kick off at 8:00 Saturday night, that some people are going to struggle to see because it's only through a streaming service unless you're in the home area of either team. So I won't get into that too much. But my goodness, I made my choice here for the of picking to go with my head and not my heart. But I'm done listening to my head about it anymore. I want to go all heart with this game. And I just look at I see the ways the Steelers could win it. I just have to believe that they can do it. More than anything, I don't want to be back here next Thursday night not talking about another game for the next freaking 7 months until the preseason because of that. Because it's so much fun to have this Steelers season go for as long as it can. So let's just get it done. It's not that Bryan said it exactly right. It's not that they're an unbeatable team. It's not that they're in an unbeatable scenario. And I'll be honest with you, I can all but guarantee, even though the Steelers are quote unquote limping, crawling, backing into the playoffs, however you want to say it, that Baltimore probably would have much rather had to face LA coming across the country for another Harbs matchup than they did to have to go up against the Steelers, who know them and have had their number so many times in recent years. So let's just see if the Steelers can pull their magic one more time on Saturday night.
So for those that listen to any of my podcasts, you know that I spent a lot of time coaching. I spent 13 years as a head coach. I didn't coach football, but I coached a team sport. I coached men's lacrosse. And at the varsity level, I was always someone who just admired people that were motivators. Mike Tomlin is a phenomenal motivator. He might not be the greatest X's and O's coach ever, but he's a phenomenal motivator. And there's no movie, in my opinion, that motivates more than the movie Miracle, which is the story of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And Herb Brooks, it's a true story. He gives a speech to his team before they play the Soviet Union in the semifinals of that Olympic tournament. And he says, guys, they're a great team. They might beat us 9 out of 10 times, but not tonight. And there are times where you have a situation where the Steelers, honestly, might not be the most talented team on the field. And there are times where, they might beat the Steelers more often than the Steelers beat them, but it just takes one performance. And I hope that the Steelers have that mentality going into this game. They might beat us 7 out of 10 times, but not tonight. Tonight we get TJ the playoff win. Tonight we get Cam to the divisional round. Tonight we all earn a place in saying that we aren't a part of that history that didn't win a playoff game. We're punching our tickets, and we're that team. So let's do it. So you know what? I'm going to watch Miracle now. So that's
Jeff
what I'm
has
gonna
me
do.
ready to run through a wall right now, baby. Let's do it. Wish they were kicking off right now. Yeah.
You guys, hey, that was a little taste of when I used to coach my team. I used to love to get them motivated. We never really pulled out the wins, but still, they were fired up in the first quarter.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to go Lou Brown, so I'm actually.
Lou Brown. We win one, we win another. It's called a streak. No, not Lou Brown. No, Herb Brooks was amazing. But anyways,
Awesome.
All right, gentlemen, this has been a lot of fun. And just so y'all know, we are not going. We're not going anywhere. We'll still be the Steelers preview. If we win, lose, or draw, we'll still be back next week. So, Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hi.
We'll see you next week, hopefully after a win.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.